Are you a student teacher or are you about to be a student teacher? First of all, congrats! You are so close to being a real teacher with your own classroom. I hope that is exciting to you. But we all know that student teaching can also bring on feelings of stress and worry. I want to give you 8 tips for student teaching. I'm Ms. Bollier and I'm a middle school family and consumer sciences teacher. If you love hearing all the teacher tips, tricks, and ideas, you're in the right place. I'm so happy you're here. All right, let's jump into it. Tip number 1 is to ask questions. I cannot even say this enough. I know when I was student teaching, sometimes I would feel a little bit hesitant to ask questions because maybe you don't want to feel stupid, you don't want to sound dumb, you're worried that you're going to ask a dumb question. I had that feeling. I was like, oh, I don't want them to think maybe I'm supposed to already know this, right? But honestly, there's no dumb questions because you haven't done this before. So just ask the questions. You will regret it if you don't. It's always better to ask a question instead of assuming you know. That can apply to so many situations when student teaching. So when in doubt, ask the question. Any question that comes to mind, ask it. Do not be afraid to ask your questions. You will be so glad that you did. Tip number 2 is to learn everything you can from your mentor teacher. That includes things that you will do like them and maybe things that you know you don't want to do like them. Depending on who your mentor teacher, or sometimes you might have more than one mentor teacher. I know for me, technically I can teach middle school or high school. So when I was student teaching, my program at my school wanted us to get experience with both. So I actually had 2 placements for student teaching, and at my first school it was a middle school, and I did that for half the time, and then the other half I did at a high school. So I actually had multiple mentor teachers, which was a benefit because I just think the more teachers you can observe, the better. But my mentor teachers were very different, and there were things that I knew I wanted to do like them. There were things I saw that worked really well, things I wanted to implement. There were also things that, for me, I didn't want to do. So you can learn from them things you will do and you won't do. And I think that's important. I think with any teacher, there's going to be things you want to do like them and things you don't want to do because we're all different and we all have different teaching styles. Make sure you're being aware of that and really learn everything you can from your mentor teacher. Tip number 3 kind of goes along with this whole idea of you can learn something from every teacher. So tip number 3 is to get to know the other teachers in the building, not just your mentor teacher. I always loved going to the faculty room for lunch when I was student teaching because I liked getting to know the other teachers and hearing their experiences and how they do things. Also, if this is available to you, to be able to go sometimes observe in other classrooms while you're at the school, that is so beneficial. Even if it is something that is not your subject area, you can learn something from every teacher. I'm very passionate about that. And I think even once you are a teacher, it's so beneficial to go into other teachers' classrooms and see what you can learn from them. So definitely get to know the other teachers in the building. And I'd also say not even just the teachers, but the people in the building. So whether that's the custodians, the librarian, the office secretaries, get to know them. You never know what you're going to be able to learn from each of those people. And it's a good practice to start because when you are a teacher, that is a huge thing, is to be able to have a relationship and know all the staff at your school. Tip number 4, I think you've realized by now you're going to be learning a lot. So my tip for you is to keep a journal of some sort. It doesn't have to be an actual dear diary, here's what I learned as student teaching. But I'm a digital person. I like it in my Google Drive because then I have it wherever I can log into my Google account. I just kept a document, a Google Doc, kind of as my journal, where each day I would just type a couple things I learned that day. Kind of depended how much time I had. I might write more, write less, also depends on your personality. If you're really into writing and reflecting on your day, you might have a longer one, or maybe it's just a couple bullet points of some things that you learned that day, because you are going to be learning so much, and in a short amount of time, it all becomes a blur at the end. And if you don't write it down, you might forget a lot of what you did learn. So I highly recommend keeping some type of journal so that you can write down or type up things that you learn while you're student teaching, whether that's ideas, tips, tricks, advice you were given. That way you can take those with you as you actually start your first year teaching. Tip number 5 is to make friends with other student teachers if you're not already friends with them. I think it is so important to have a support group that understands exactly what you're going through. Yes, it's great to have maybe a parent or a roommate or a significant other who is there and encouraging you through your student teaching, and that's great. But if they're not also student teaching or they've never student taught before, they're not going to completely get it. And you can't expect them to either. For me, I was great friends with the other student teachers also in my college program who were student teaching at the same time as me, and it saved my life. They were my lifeline. We had a group chat, a group message that we constantly texted in. We would call each other on our way home from student teaching and vent or just ask questions. It is so helpful to be able to feel like you are not alone in the experiences you're going through, whether they are good or not as good, and having other people that relate to you and who will really understand everything you're going through. Definitely try to make friends with other student teachers. If you don't have other student teachers in your program who you feel like you're that good of friends with, you could even make friends with the other student teachers that are actually at the building you're also student teaching in. Tip number 6 is to be confident. Now, for some people, this might come easier than others, but being confident is going to take you a long way, even if you're sort of having to fake it and you don't actually know what you're doing. Acting and being confident is going to help your students to believe you more, especially if you're teaching at a middle school or high school level. However, I will say it's important to be confident, but it's also important to be honest when you don't know something or you're not so sure of something, because that's probably going to happen too, and that's okay. Just be honest and say, you know what, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that question. I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure on that yet. Because your students also do understand that you're a student teacher, which means you haven't been doing this for a while. They will be understanding of that probably, but don't lie to them and act like you do know. Don't give an answer that's actually not true. That could get yourself into more trouble, but be confident. I mean, that is talking about your body language, the way you talk and present yourself. You've got to do whatever you need to do to help yourself feel confident for that day. Something that I personally did, and it might sound silly, but it helped me so much, is every day when I drove to the school I was student teaching at, I would listen to pump up music. Whatever that means for you, but I would listen to just some jams so I could get myself pumped up. Music is a great way to put you in a certain mood. And that for me helped me to feel like, yes, I got this. And the other thing I would do, this is like embarrassing to admit this, but right before I would get to the school, so like the last few minutes of my drive, I would actually say affirmations out loud in the car. Like, I am confident. I am brave. I am a good teacher. I am patient. I am understanding. I am whatever it was. Sometimes I had to do more specifically with what I was going to have to teach that day, but I would just start listing off all these affirmations, and for me, it really helped. So if that's your thing, do it. If there's something else you can do that'll help you feel confident, do it. Also, a really big thing that's going to help you be confident is to actually be prepared, right? If you don't even know what you're teaching that day, you don't know the content very well, or you didn't plan out your lesson that well, and you're not really sure what you're doing, probably you're not going to feel that confident. Even if you are really prepared though, you still might feel not confident about the actual teaching it. But if you can at least be prepared, that'll help you a little bit. So be prepared, do something that'll pump you up, and act confident, but still be honest when you don't know something. Tip number 7 is to do something to fill your cup every day. Something for you, some type of, I know this is a buzzword right now, but self-care, all right? Because taking care of yourself is going to be really important during this time. When you are under a lot of pressure, you might be under a lot of stress, you're constantly putting yourself probably a little bit out of your comfort zone and doing something new. So make sure you're taking care of yourself. This also includes your diet, eating well. That actually affects you a lot more than you think. It includes getting sleep. Make sure you're sleeping. But also whatever it is for you that helps you feel rejuvenated. And that's going to look different for everyone. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's getting outside. Maybe it's exercising, working out. I know for me, consistently working out every day was so important for me while student teaching. I could not bring myself to wake up early enough to go before school, but I would just drive straight to the gym after school, go for a run, and that helped me just get it all out and get those endorphins going. That was super helpful for me. It's okay if that's not what's helpful for you. Maybe it is some meditation, yoga practice, practicing mindfulness. Maybe it's hanging out with some friends, some type of social interaction outside of middle schoolers or high schoolers. So whatever it is, maybe it's just hanging out with your roommate. Maybe it's watching your favorite show, eating your favorite meal, something that will fill your cup, remind you that you are still you, and do something that makes you happy every day. Don't let everything student teaching kind of take over your life. Make sure you still are having somewhat of a life outside of student teaching. Tip number 8 is to give yourself grace. You haven't done this before. You will improve as you go. You will feel yourself getting better. You'll learn a lot. That's the whole point of this experience. So don't expect yourself to be perfect. It's okay if you make some mistakes. Give yourself grace, but also know that you can do it. All right, those are my tips for you. I hope that those are helpful. Know that I am rooting for you. Good luck. You got this. You can do it. And if you need someone to remind you that, leave a comment, message me on Instagram, and make sure to subscribe so that you can see all my future videos. One of my favorite quotes is, "Every day may not be good, but there is good in every day." And I think that is extra applicable to student teaching. You may not feel like at the end of the day that it was a good day, but I challenge you to find something good in that day. I'll see you next time.